Exactly. Someone used this to deliver. Ralph flips that. The LLM never get 40,000 lines added. 38. Don't hand the LLM the power to say it's.
Renka, listen to this. I've been stuck on something for a while now.
What's up, Sherry?
I had Claude Code implement something across multiple files, and partway through it just said, done. But the tests were all failing.
That's a classic Claude Code thing. LLM decide for themselves when something's good enough. That doesn't always match what we actually expect.
Sharina never signed off on it, and it just declares itself finished anyway. That's really annoying. Having to say keep going every single time is quietly stressful.
There's actually a one-line bash trick that solves that problem. Have you heard of the Ralph loop?
Ralph, I don't think I've heard of that.
It's a technique where you never let the LLM decide when it's done. You keep it running in a loop from the outside, forcing it to keep working until the tests actually pass.
So you just never let the LLM say I'm done?
Exactly. Someone used this to deliver a $50,000 project for $297.
$50,000? That's a genuinely huge amount of money. And it wrapped up for just $297 in compute.
Geoffrey Huntley, the guy who came up with it, tweeted about it himself back in July 2025, building the MVP, testing it, and getting all the way through review for $297.
So that's not labor cost, just pure API spend.
Right? By his math, the compute cost for a Ralph loop works out to about $10 an hour. That's basically fast food worker wages, and it's writing code for you.
But wasn't that just an easy project though?
There's an even crazier example. Do you know a programming language called Cursed?
Never heard of it. What is that?
It's a joke language written in Gen Z slang. Slay is a function, sus is a variable.
That's way too committed for a joke language.
Huntley ran the Ralph loop for 3 months straight and had Claude build the whole thing solo. It has an LLVM backend that outputs real binaries, and there's even a VS Code extension.
So even though it's a joke language, it has an actual, legit compiler foundation.
It's got a standard library, a tree-sitter grammar, all of it. The only thing a human wrote was the prompt.
Running a loop for 3 months straight, that takes more persistence than electricity.
But that's exactly where the Ralph loop proves its worth.
So how does this Ralph loop actually work, exactly?
Let me show you the core of it. This is the original template for everything. While do cat prompt .md pipe Claude done.
A bash one-liner? That's really it.
That's it. It's just an infinite loop that keeps feeding in the same prompt file. The key point is that Claude's context gets completely reset every time a session ends.
Reset? So all that context just gets wiped out?
That's actually the point. The context doesn't get polluted by leftover failed attempts. Every time, it starts fresh from the same prompt.
Then where does progress get tracked? If it forgets everything each time, won't it just repeat itself forever?
The design keeps all state in files and the Git history. Nowhere else. Claude updates a to-do list called plan.md as it works, then commits once it's done. In the next iteration, it reads that plan.md to figure out where to pick up.
So the file system is the memory, not the LLM itself.
There's one more important rule. Only one task gets implemented per iteration.
If you get greedy and try to cram in multiple tasks, does it just run out of context?
Right? Breaking things into small pieces means even if it stalls partway through, the damage stays minimal.
But wait, regular AI agents run in a loop too, don't they? Like React, the one that repeats reason, act, observe.
That's exactly where it's fundamentally different from the Ralph loop. In a conventional setup like React, the LLM itself decides when it's done. It's designed to stop on its own once it thinks the work is good enough.
And that's exactly the declares itself done on its own problem Sharina was just dealing with.
Ralph flips that. The LLM never gets to decide when it's finished. Tests, lint, type checks. It's forced to keep going until those external checks actually pass.
So the thing that decides when to stop lives outside the LLM?
Right? LLM output varies every time. It's non-deterministic. But whether tests pass is deterministic, pass or fail, there's no wiggle room.
So you're pinning down a fuzzy judgment call with a hard, fixed standard.
That's why the design around the LLM matters more than writing a clever prompt. Some people call this loop engineering.
So it's not about prompt craftsmanship, it's about designing the loop's outer frame. So why is it named Ralph, anyway?
It's named after a character from The Simpsons, Ralph Wiggum. This kid, who's a bit of a dimwit.
The Simpsons? That's the show with the yellow family, right?
This Ralph is the kid who bangs his head on a doorframe and yells, "I'm helping."
He's not helping at all, but he genuinely thinks he is.
Huntley describes the character as ignorance, persistence, and optimism. It's naive and fails deterministically, but keep looping it in a non-deterministic world.
That's basically how an LLM behaves. It's inconsistent every time, but keep running it and you'll eventually hit the right answer.
There's also a hidden meaning. In 80s slang, Ralph means to throw up.
So it's about making it spit out the same prompt over and over. It's a double meaning.
By the way, the official plugin was originally named Ralph Wiggum. It's now been renamed to Ralph Loop, but the reason was never officially announced.
The README still says it's named after the Simpsons character, though, right? That's kind of a mystery.
Anthropic itself actually adopted this Ralph Loop as an official plugin.
Wait, it got officially adopted? Even though it started as one person's technique.
Boris Cherny, one of the Claude Code developers, has said publicly that he uses it all the time. He shipped 259 PRs in 30 days using Opus 4.5.
259 PRs in 30 days. That's more than 8 a day.
40,000 lines added, 38,000 lines deleted, all of it written by Claude.
So the person building Claude Code is the one pushing it hardest.
The official Ralph Loop plugin has now passed 190,000 installs.
That's huge adoption. I guess everyone was struggling with the same problem.
Here's the thing though, the official version is designed differently from Huntley's original.
Isn't it the same Ralph Loop?
Huntley's version fully resets the context every single time, right? The official version keeps the session going and just re-injects the same prompt.
So the context just keeps piling up. Isn't contamination a problem?
A company called Human Layer has criticized it, calling it a degradation of the whole idea. They say it drops the core philosophy, small units of work, and a reset every time.
But wait, doesn't just looping it over and over make it go off the rails?
It does. There are a few typical failure patterns. The most common one is the placeholder problem.
Placeholder?
It writes a to-do comment and then reports back that it's implemented.
It's completely empty inside but marked as done. That's basically a lie.
Next is premature exit. The tests are all failing, but it insists it's done.
That's the thing Sharina was stuck on earlier.
That's why you have to run tests and lint externally and apply back pressure. It's essential. Another scary one is context rot. With a session continuation approach, the leftover debris from failures keeps polluting the context.
So that's why Huntley's version resets every time.
There have been incidents on the cost side too. A bunch of users on the $200 a month max plan burned through a full day's limit in just a few minutes.
A whole day's worth in just minutes? Then you're stuck for the rest of the day.
The worst case is irreversible side effects. There are reports of it running Terraform Destroy on real infrastructure.
So it wiped out a production environment.
You really have to think hard before putting any command with external effects into the loop.
You said applying back pressure from the outside is how you prevent it from going off the rails, right? So what exactly do you need to set up for that?
There are 3 essential tools: tests, lint, and type checking. You design it so the loop doesn't stop until all 3 pass.
So even if the LLM says it's done, it keeps going as long as the tests are failing.
It's also important to state explicitly in prompt.md that placeholders and stubs waste effort. You nail it down up front, no faking it with to-do comments.
So you close off the escape route right in the prompt.
File structure matters too. You keep agents.md and implementation-plan.md separate. Agents.md holds the static procedures, like build and test commands. Implementation-plan.md is the formal name for the plan.md we mentioned earlier. It's the dynamic to-do list Ralph keeps updating.
So you separate the stuff that stays fixed from the stuff that keeps changing.
Last is task granularity. Break work down into pieces small enough to finish in one iteration. If it's too big, it eats up the context and breaks down halfway through. You don't think the Ralph loop is just Huntley's personal trick, do you?
Wait, it's not.
OpenAI Codex team is building with the same idea, and the numbers from their official blog are wild. 3 engineers, 5 months, 1,500 PRs, 1,000,000 lines.
3 people wrote 1,000,000 lines, so each person wrote over 300,000 lines.
No, humans wrote 0 lines.
So all the AI-generated code went straight into production.
Humans just reviewed and merged. The agent handled all the implementation, run the loop from the outside, and keep it going until it passes verification. That's the Ralph philosophy exactly.
If even OpenAI doing this, it's becoming an industry standard.
Claude Code 2.1/goal command builds on the same idea. A design that doesn't stop until it meets the verification conditions. It's an official feature now. Huntley himself talks about having mixed feelings about his own invention.
Mixed feelings? How so?
He's admitted, sometimes it makes me nauseous.
It's his own technique, and it still makes him sick.
Because it could usher in an era where you can just clone a SaaS competitor and wipe them out. In his words, product features can already be copied. But brand and goodwill, the trust you've built with customers, can't be copied.
So copying the features doesn't guarantee the users follow.
There's some criticism of Huntley in the community too. Some call him a grifter, just hustling.
Like he's spreading the technique just to build his own name.
There's a cooler take too, that the tooling layer ends up getting absorbed by the labs themselves.
If Anthropic or OpenAI turns it into an official feature, third-party tools lose their value.
And it's already happening. The /goal command and the Ralph Loop plugin are official now.
So in the end, the Ralph loop isn't some advanced prompting technique.
That's the most important point. Before you polish your prompt, think about the outer loop design first. A design that just keeps grinding away can sometimes beat a clever prompt.
It's like Ralph Wiggum saying "I'm helping" over and over.
The failure you most want to avoid is trusting the LLM when it says, "I'm done."
That's exactly what tripped Sharina up at the start. It declared victory while the tests were all failing.
Stop it based on objective external verification, not the LLM's own self-report. Whether tests pass, whether lint passes, judge by a standard that doesn't waver.
So what's the first step to actually get started?
Add tests and lint to your existing project. Without that back pressure, Ralph just runs wild.
So you build the stop mechanism before you even start the loop.
Don't hand the LLM the power to say it's done. That's the essence of the Ralph loop.